Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. I'm Stacy. Today I'm going to go over The Intruder by Freida McFadden. He's never going to have his cycle. He's never going to extend. And I like this book. I really love that book, but I'm interested to see. I don't say they drugged for the family, but they were very fancy. But I will read this book, give it a chance and see. Kindle, I downloaded Very. So I have the first 3 books of those, which I do plan to read. So this book, I read this book in a couple days. I usually read Freida's books, I'll say in like one day. It's very mindless and you can get through her books. I will post a list of all the books that I read by her. This is not my first Freida's book. She is a wild, wild woman, is what I say whenever anybody ever picks up a Freida McFadden book. Freida McFadden, she writes wild stories with wild like random twists that you try and guess, but you got your finger on it, but it's never like how you see it. So with her book, she normally writes in the thriller department, more of like a suspense or a mystery or some type of domestics where it is a triangle of a husband, a wife, a daughter, teacher, like close proximity of characters. Not a lot of characters that she builds up or characters that she write about. So at the most, she may have like 5 or 6 characters in a story, and they all gonna be on some crazy stuff. Like 2 main characters, maybe like very limited side characters. This book was actually 292 pages. I thought it was longer. This book was written, the copyright date is 2025. I read the digital version of this on Kindle Unlimited. All her books are typically released on Kindle, Kindle Unlimited. And you pay a certain price and then you get the whatever books you want to rent out that section. And I always see her book and read them in a day or so. This one, she put a little more into this. It had more depth than her normal books. For if you have read any of Freida McFadden's book, like The Housemaid, The Teacher, The Crash, The Tenant, she doesn't really put The Coworker. She doesn't really put a lot of emphasis on the character's backstory or do a lot of character building. She just gets with it. Like straight to the point, short chapters, bam, bam, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am type situation. So this one was a little bit more depth on each character. I will give her that. But going into a Freida McFadden book, you know in your mind that you gonna have time for some like crazy stuff. It's not like it's gonna trigger you too bad. It may, because one book, the surrogate mother triggered my friend so bad she had to DNF it. Like she just couldn't even. She cannot stand that book. So it depends on whatever your triggers are. Read her trigger warnings. But her as an author, she specializes in brain injuries in real life. And she has a little family that lives on the ocean side, on a 3-story house is what they say about her, with her cat. And she comments, and she's very active on social media. Her, John Mars, they're like kind of like brother and sister, is like their inside joke, because he writes thrillers too that are wild and crazy like her, but his is a little more like, I think he's from the UK or someplace. His are a lot thicker than Freida's book. Her books are usually like maybe 250 pages. That's why I said this one was kind of long for her to be 292 pages. I read this book. Of course, it's a popular book and I've been seeing it since the day it came out. I was like, okay, I'm going to stop what I'm reading and read something else. But I didn't. I committed to my TBR. And then now I read this book because the bookstore had this book as their pick of the month for their thrillers book club meeting. And this will be my first thriller meeting that I'm going to with the bookshop. So, and it's Freida, and I'm a Freida fan. So I went to the book club meeting only because I like her and I like her books, and they were reading that. And I knew I was going to read it eventually, so that kind of put fire underneath me to go ahead and read this book. And it was, let's see, I started this book November 5th. I finished it November the 7th. Would I read it again? No. Would I recommend this book? Yes. Is this her best book? No. I still like The Housemaid. The Housemaid was like top tier. That's why The Housemaid is going to be made into a movie, a major motion picture. Even though it's a typical thriller, like husband, wife, young girl type situation is falling for some things and gets into a love triangle. That's what I'll say, a love triangle. What characters or themes that resonated with me? The characters. So the character list, it goes, you have Elizabeth, which I think she goes by Ella. Then you'll have, what was the name? Rudy. That was the old guy. He was the landlord. You have Lee, which was like the nice guy that lived down around the corner. You have, what's that girl name? Elizabeth. You have Casey. Casey is, I keep mixing the name up. Casey and Ella, one of them is the adult, one of them is the child. And then you'll have like the mother of the little girl. Her name was Desiree. I think that was her name, Desiree. And Brittany is one of the kids at the school. Alton or Anton was a kid at the school that was friends with the girl. And then Brittany's dad, he was like a sociology professor. So that is it with all the characters. No other name besides like random kids at the school, the teacher. Like they really didn't have any depth outside of those main core characters. And then some of them are like minute. They didn't have a big part in this book either, just like small roles. So the character lines were very easy to follow for me. Although she did do, if you're not used to her writing style, she'll do like the past and then the current and then the past and the current. But I was intrigued with both storylines running, like with how she wrote when she was a kid, or when she wrote when things were, you know, when they went back to the house where they lived, and you could just see like the things that she was writing about. She wrote it like Nintendo, or like the games that they played back in the day, and headphones and those type of things. So you kind of got the idea that it was going back and forth. Now, emotions it brought up with me. Oh yeah, I can't give y'all what the characters that resonated with me about, because that's going to give you too much into the story. Because these characters, I'll give you one spoiler. It's not a spoiler, but one of the characters is a hoarder in this book. And like it's like disgusting. You're like, oh my God. If you have any triggers about hoarders, it makes you want to just clean up your own house. Like it was like one of those. Anyways, I digress. So the emotions that it brought up with me, bullies in school. You got to stand up for who stand up for your friends. And some kids are wimpier than other, and they have a backstory to why they are wimpier than others. And just be more kind to society, because you never know what people's at home life is like. And my opinion about the author's writing style, you kind of go in waiting for a twist with Freida. So if you read her, you're like, okay, you're trying to like write stuff down, what you think throughout, to see if your predictions are going to add up to what really happens. And it's kind of silly how she does it too. So she's like, she has a good sense of humor. And it's like always a wild story. And she's good at with putting thriller, sense of humor, and not making it too gory. But still like, you get the ick when you're reading her stories. Writing style, to me, she can't do no wrong. So y'all know she is not my favorite author, but I'm going to read everything that she writes. So I gave this book her writing style a 5 out of 5. Even though she has potholes and loopholes, and it's just like some things were just left to your imagination. I just like her personality when she writes. Like, she puts it down on paper, and it's very readable to me too. So readability, I'll say a 5 out of 5. Relatability, 5 out of 5. Personal impact, no, maybe 2 out of 5. No, 1 out of 5. Personal, 1 out of 5. Not that personal, no personal impact. Originality, I would say probably a 5 out of 5 with this storyline. The plot, it was definitely, I'll say a 4 out of 5 because she's always reaching with her plot. So overall, for this book, for me, I will give it a 4.5 out of 5. I know y'all, it's Freida. I'm like, girl, it wasn't awful, but it wasn't her best work. And I see how she sells. She just writes like comfort thriller stories. I don't know how you do that, but it's like a general comfort thriller where the switch is never like god awful, and when you get there you feel like a satisfaction after you get to that switch. It's like, oh, well, what, oh, why do I have to reread this book again? And I liked it. What I liked about this is that this book, it gets right to the point. Like, everyone in this book has a role. In all her stories, every character has a purpose. Like, there's a reason why she put characters in these stories at that point. And I like how this book had forced proximity in it. And I like when people are forced together. And you think the intruder, you're like, okay, these people are very in close proximity with each other. And they got to deal with each other's kinks and flaws and things that's going on with them. What wasn't my cup of tea is just that some parts was just like nasty, but she had to put that in there. Some parts was just disgusting. And also, it was like a reach. The whole plot was like a reach. They had zero spice in this book, and I'm okay with that because I'm not a big spicy reader. I would recommend this to a friend who have read her books to see what they thought about it. Like, if you are a Freida McFadden fan and to see what you thought about this book, I will recommend it to you. If not, I think your first book by Freida should always be The Housemaid. 1, don't worry about 3 or 2, 3, 4, because they pressured and bullied her, I think, to make part 2. She should have left it alone because she usually does standalones. She doesn't do series. And that one, they pressured and bullied her into making a part 2. Then so you have The Housemaid, and you have The Housemaid's Secrets. You have The Housemaid is Watching, and then you have The Housemaid's Wedding. She should have stopped at 1. She should have stopped at 1 because the story was getting diluted each time. And I'm like, how much of The Housemaid? Some people, I've never heard anybody that read her book said they absolutely love The Housemaid Secrets. Oh, The Housemaid Secrets is my favorite book. Oh, I love The Housemaid Wedding. Nobody loved that. Y'all pressured her to write that, and she did. So this was a dark mystery type book. It was medium to slow for her. But for a normal thriller writer, her writing is very plain in sight. You can read it real fast. The characters, they were like developed, but no depth into these characters whatsoever. The story was kind of challenging because it did involve some kid stuff, but not in like the worst way, but some kid issues. It was tense at points in the story. It had a mixture between the plot and the character, which it put you on a ride. You going through the storm. And I'm going to say what I have to say about the storm too, because in the synopsis, it says it's a hurricane. And I'm like, I'm a Louisiana person, and what they was doing for this hurricane is not hurricane behavior. It was not hurricane behavior. So you had the characters as in Ella, Desiree was the mom, Lee, you had Rudy, you had Brittany's dad, who was John Carter. You have Anton, and then we have Casey. There was no really diversity in this story besides like classism, but diverse. I didn't see any diverse characters in this. And the characters, no, they weren't lovable at all. They were very complicated. Like some of the characters in this book was complicated, and you're like, what the heck? The plot was addictive, and that's how she gets you in by like reeling you in through that plot to get you to want to read and think about it and figure out the loose ends and guess her twist. Like that's her niche. That's how she writes these stories. It was gripping and exciting because most of her books are gripping and exciting. It was on the darker side, eerie side. It was kind of harsh. The triggers, I would say, they had abuse, alcoholism. Yeah, alcoholism. There was a death. There was a murder, and compulsive disorders, and I don't know what the other disorder was, but they did have a lot of disorders in this book. And I'm like, okay, Freida, keep doing what you do, giving us these books that we can read in a little bit of time. And one day, I don't know if you're still working as a brain injury doctor, but I think you good in my book to write full time. She keep putting them out like back to back to back to back. So that's just what you get when you are reading a Freida McFadden book. If you haven't read this popular book, The Intruder, it wasn't awful. Like when I went to the book club meeting, nobody really complained about the book being bad. So everybody was just like, what? And it had a good conversation going for if you're in a book club meeting or if you have a book club and you want discussion or you want people to talk and give you feedback on what they thought about different parts in this book. It was very cool to see what people thought about this book. And coming from, they had about 20 people in the room with us for thrillers. And one guy, he was a teacher, and he was just asking like, when do you call CPS and child protection services and stuff? And when do they get involved? And it would never happen like that. And that's the whole thing about fiction. It's all subjective. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to work like it works in real life. You can stretch it and reach it however you want. And she's really good at doing that. So that's all I got for this Freida McFadden, The Intruder book. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Hello.